left. This one gonna go.
Coming up, we'll recap the last Padres game, preview today's starting pitching matchup, give you our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Craig Stammen. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. As today, the Padres take on the Miami Marlins in the first game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Marlins, right-hander Ryan Gusto, and for the Padres, right-hander German Marquez. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt with you from inside our Padres Radio Network studios here in San Diego. First pitch coming up at 4:10 p.m. on the West Coast. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. You'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen. You'll also hear from Padres president of baseball operations and general manager A.J. Preller. We check in with Tony Gwynn Jr. in just a few minutes and much, much more. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres enter today 50-53. They enter the day 4 games out of a wild card spot in the National League. They are 2-5 on this 10-game road trip so far to Kansas City and Atlanta. Marlins, meanwhile, come in 52-51. They enter the day 2 games out of a wild card spot. Marlins have lost 9 games in a row. Yes, 9 in a row. That goes back to well before the All-Star break. It's been more than 2 weeks since Miami won a game. Marlins have not lost 10 in a row since 2011, so they look to avoid doing that here today. Before we focus on this series in Miami, let's quickly rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, yesterday in Atlanta, Chris Sale on the mound for the Braves. Padres got some gifts in the second. A misplay in left. Sale got wild. He walked in a run. Bases loaded for Luis Rengifo.
0-2, and Rengifo golfs it on a line out to right center. It is down and a base hit. Firmina scored. Cronenworth's on his way. It's a 2-run single, and the Padres ahead 3-0 here in the second.
Griffin Canning took the mound in the bottom half of the second. He gave up a solo home run to Michael Harris the second to make it 3-1. Ozzie Albies hit a home run in the 4th inning to make it 3-2. Later in the inning, there were 2 on base for Dominic Smith.
2 on and 2 out. The 1-1 pitch hit in the air deep to right field. Fernando not even gonna try. Way gone. A 3-run home run for Dominic Smith. And for the first time today, the Braves lead. It is 5-3.
Braves led 5-3 after 4 innings. Predictably, Sale settled in. He went 6. He struck out 11. Drake Baldwin went yard against Matt Waldron in the 7th inning, a solo shot to make it 6-3. But for a second consecutive game, Padres would not go down quietly. Top of the 8th inning, Padres still down 6-3. Manny Machado hit a 2-out single against Braves reliever Tyler Kinley. Ty France was next.
Kinley delivers, and France swings, hits it in the air, deep to left field. Dubon backing up, this one over his head, gonna go into the Padre bullpen. Ty France delivers again. A 2-run shot here in the 8th inning, and we've got ourselves a 1-run game at 6-5.
Padres still trailed 6-5 going to the 9th inning. Braves closer Raisel Iglesias took the mound for Atlanta. Padres would get the tying and go-ahead runs on base for Rengifo.
2 on and 2 out. The 0-2 pitch. Rengifo swings and misses. Strike 3. The ball game is over. And again, the Padres rally in the 9th, but too little too late. And the Braves take 3 out of 4 as the Padre road trip will continue in Miami.
The road trip continuing in Miami. Like Jesse said, final score yesterday, Braves 6 and the Padres 5. And should we expect some close games this weekend in Miami? Well, history would tell us we should. All 6 meetings between the Padres and Marlins last season were decided by 2 runs or fewer, including 4 games by a single run. So we had some very close, exciting games with the Marlins last year. We'll see what kinds of games we have beginning tonight in Miami. Let's go to the 305.
let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Tony Gwynn Jr. in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Tony, let's start with this. Craig Stammen asked earlier today some questions about urgency leading up to the trade deadline. This is obviously a very important road trip. It's a very important time of year. With the trade deadline looming, Tony, if you were a Padre player, would having more urgency as we get closer to the deadline, some important decisions to be made, would you treat it like that, or are you sort of just treating it day to day? Hey, let's go out and win a game and worry about what happens from there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like our reflex to assume that, because a team is losing, that there's no urgency, and it can feel like that a lot of times. I just have a hard time believing these guys aren't already feeling that urgency.
Yeah.
Urgency, unfortunately, isn't an ingredient that helps you win games all the time. You still got to go out and pitch well and do a lot of the things that's necessary, even when you have urgency, and there's no guarantee that works. But, yeah, I think to answer your question short, of course there should be urgency. There should have been urgency coming out of the break, and that's not to say that there wasn't urgency. I think there was. It just, haven't played well enough to have a better record than they're showing here to start after the break.
Yeah, Tony, let's focus on this Marlins team. They are really going through it. They've lost 9 in a row for a good chunk of the season. This was one of the great stories in baseball, what the Marlins were doing, but it has unraveled lately. What's your general feel of the Marlins and what's been going on with this team in really the last 2+ weeks going back to before the break?
I mean, my general feel is good for the Padres.
Yeah.
They need to run into a team that isn't playing well and has lost some games in a row. I mean, but that also could set up for a team that's going to come out and play desperate.
Yeah.
That's remains to be seen. I think, when you look at the Marlins, they just haven't played good baseball. I've watched the last couple games they've played, and it's a little bit of sloppiness. A lot of the things that they do well, which is, they run the bases well, they put the ball in play pretty well. They aren't doing that at the level they were doing it to start the season. And, I think that could have been expected because of the simple fact this team is so young. And I think it was already kind of a surprise to see them playing as well as they had been. And they've come back down to earth a little bit. But I still think this team can be dangerous.
Yeah.
I think they can easily, because of their style of play, get back into a good groove pretty quickly. The Padres just hope that comes after they leave Miami.
Yeah, I'm with you. Anytime I hear a team has lost 9 in a row entering a series, on one hand, you're facing them at, a good time, but on the other hand, they're desperate for some wins, and certainly that would appear to be the case this weekend in Miami. Marlins also have not hit very much lately. We'll talk more about that later. Let's focus on German Marquez on the mound for the Padres here today. Tony, what will you be looking for from German against, as you said, a pretty young Marlin lineup?
I'm looking for some depth from German. I think we've had some decent pitching performances in that Braves series outside of the last one there in yesterday's ball game. So what I've noticed is when the Padres have gotten good, starting pitching, they've been in these games and they haven't necessarily had to put up a ton of offense. So I would like to see Marquez get into that 5 range. We saw JP do it. We saw Michael King do it at a high level. I just think that gives the team the best chance. And if German can, avoid that rough patch that we've seen each starter really have to deal with at some point in the game and get some depth, I think that would go a long way for the Padres and them trying to get a victory.
Right-hander Ryan Gusto on the mound for Miami. We'll talk more about him a little bit later. Tony, I want to finish up with this. This is also an interesting matchup because it's a matchup of the two teams who lead the majors, or I should say, 2 of the top 3 teams in the majors in stolen bases. Padres have done that all year. They've run a lot. Just your thoughts on the Padres running game this year, because I really think it stood out really from day one.
I think it's been out of necessity.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that this team, had they hit the way we expected them to hit, that they would be running as much as we've seen them run. I think certainly Jackson would probably be a guy who's still running. Toddy. But after that, I don't know that we got the guys pushing. But because their offense has lacked for a large portion of the season, they've had to find other ways to put themselves in scoring position, right? You have to think, if this team had offensively been as good as we've thought, well, we have seen, Jace Bowen, we have seen Samad Taylor, guys who have come up and helped in that stolen base category and kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. I don't know that we've seen that. So I think what we've seen from the Padres have been out of necessity, as the same thing is for the Miami. They don't have a ton of power, so they got to be able to kind of, steal some bases, put themselves in scoring position. So I think both teams are doing what they have to do in order to have their best version of themselves right now.
Tony, as always, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Jesse coming up at the very top of the hour. Thanks so much.
No problem, Sam.
All right, that's Tony Gwynn Jr. joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network. Again, first pitch is coming up at 4:10 p.m. here in San Diego. We send things out to Jesse and Tony right at 4 p.m. as the Padres continue this 10-game road trip. The third leg of this trip, Padres will have an off day on Monday before finally returning home. But Padres trying to get this ship pointed back in the right direction. They've started this road trip 2-5 and now 3 very, very critical games coming up in Miami. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen. We take our first look at the Padre lineup here today. Much, much more to do as we get you ready for this one coming up in Miami on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 4:10 in Miami. Game 1 of this 3-game series between the Padres and the Marlins. Let's take a look at the Padres lineup today. Looks like this. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Jake Cronenworth at second base batting second. Manny Machado DHing today batting third. Ty France at first base batting cleanup. Jackson Merrill in center batting fifth. Luis Campusano doing the catching and batting sixth. Gavin Sheets in left field batting seventh. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting eighth. And Sungmoon Song getting a start at third base today and batting ninth with right-hander Germán Marquez on the hill. As we get ready for this one, let's go to Miami and hear from the Padres skipper.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres skipper Craig Stammen. Served up by Sinley Food. If you've had better chicken, you must be a rooster.
Germán Marquez going for you. It seems like he's had better velocity after coming back off the IL. How much does that help him? I mean, obviously it still comes down to location, but it's nice to have an extra couple miles an hour.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a couple extra miles an hour. You can get away with a few little mistakes that way, and he's been able to hold his velocity through all of his appearances, and hopefully more of that tonight.
Does that give him a little bit more breathing room on the off speed also?
Yeah, I think so. The separation is always, what you're looking for as a pitcher. We saw yesterday with Chris Sale, the way he was able to separate his fastball from his slider and how that gives the hitter such a tough time.
The offense, 8th ranked in terms of runs per game since July 1st. In other words, it's been coming around, and you've seen the power. I mean, how encouraging is that? I know it's been frustrating that it seems like you can't get the pitching and the hitting going at the same time, but it's nice to see the hitting coming around.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see some of our best players starting to play like we know they're capable of, and it just shows you how the season is filled with so many ups and downs, and hopefully this is a streak that lasts through the end of the year, and we look up and these guys' numbers are all about the same as what we're normally accustomed to. I feel like if that happens, we have a very good chance of having a successful season too.
Was it difficult not putting Rengifo in the lineup today? He's been one of your hottest hitters. He's been going well, but I know you're good about rotating guys.
Yeah, and I think we got to get Stallings some playing time too. He was playing well also, before the All-Star break, and we got to get him going. It also allows us to have a switch hitter off the bench too, to deploy that. Rengifo at any point in the game to hopefully get a good at-bat against a reliever.
How impressive has he been? I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but can you reiterate just what he's showing you from both sides of the plate?
Yeah, he's just a quality at-bat. Every time he gets to the plate, he can handle the fastball really well. And, when you're looking for a pinch hit, that's what you need. You get somebody short to it and can handle the fastball.
Seems like he's been clutch as well. What's that factor in terms of not getting overmatched by the situation?
Yeah, he's done a great job. Several big hits for us over the course of this last week, and we're going to need more of those the rest of the year. I have not gotten word on it yet. It was sometime this afternoon, and I've been busy preparing for the Marlins, so I'm sure I'll get a debrief or an email or something like that as the day goes or tomorrow.
I'd imagine that it would be your preference that AJ buy at the deadline or add, or as opposed to selling. Does that at all change how you manage the next 9 games? Is there anything different about what you're doing now for these games, what they could mean?
We're trying to win them all, and I think that's the only way that you can change anything about anything. So one thing that we are not focusing on is the trade deadline. That's something we cannot control. The only thing we can control is how we play each and every day, how we show up with the right energy and attitude, and then try to win that day's baseball game, and that's what we're doing right now.
The urgency is about the same as it would be or will be August 4th?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope our urgency is the same every day that we show up and want to play baseball. Sometimes urgency is maxed by other players on the other team doing well and making us not look as urgent as we would like to be. And then there's days where we have the advantage and we look really urgent. So it's hard to, there's no urgency gauge or meter that we're tracking, but it is a meter that I have to track every day of where the guys are at, attitude-wise, energy-wise, enthusiasm-wise, and my job to get them fired up and excited to play baseball and try to win that day's game.
That was Padres manager Craig Stammen before today's game in Miami. We'll hear more from Craig on our post-game coverage coming up later on this evening here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 4:10 p.m. You heard a question there to Craig about Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove. Those guys were scheduled to throw to hitters today in Arizona. So if we hear any info on that, we'll pass it along. But we will hear from A.J. Preller on Pivetta and Musgrove in a little bit. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to step up their game? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not. Presented by ASAP Drain Guys and Plumbing, a division of Anderson Commercial, your full-service plumber serving San Diego County.
Now we have a number of guys in the hot category today. Let's begin with Fernando. Fernando Tatis Jr., 7 games in the second half. So far, 11 for 27 with 3 home runs, a double, a triple, 3 home runs, and 12 RBIs, 5 walks in those 7 games as well. Ty France hits in 10 of his last 11 games. He's batting .381 in that span with a 1321 OPS, 6 home runs, 4 doubles in those 11 games. Luis Rengifo also in the hot category in the midst of a 5-game hitting streak, 9 for 20 in that span with a home run and 5 RBIs. Rengifo not in the Padres lineup today, but will be available off the bench. Manny Machado, 2 hits yesterday. He's batting .333 in his past 11 games. Not category, we take a look at Gavin Sheets. Now, he does have hits in back-to-back games, but even with that, he's still just 3 for his last 36. So we need a little bit more from Gavin Sheets to get him out of the not category. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not as we get ready for this series opener in Miami. Padres President of Baseball Operations and General Manager A.J. Preller spoke earlier today here on 97.3 The Fan on the Ben and Woods program. Here was A.J. on his perspective regarding the current state of the Padres.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've known, with the injuries with Darvish, Pivetta, Musgrove, and now, obviously, the list goes on in terms of Adam, Estrada, those guys, that this is going to be a tough time of year in terms of it's going to be challenging for all of us in terms of, the depth, and we were going to get tested on a tough part of the schedule. So, I think we understand that, and I think, you go into it every single night. There's a path to win every single game. And it's our job to try to go find that and see what the best way is to go do that. And, some pitchers that, again, it creates opportunity for some other guys to step up and find out what they're all about. Obviously we've got, as good a back end of the bullpen as anybody in the game. So I think the exercise that we're constantly looking at is, how do you, a lot of different ways to get there. It can be outscoring guys. It could be putting runs on the board. It can be mixing and matching, which is what we've, what we're looking to do with this current group, and it's based on your personnel, and then try to get it to a spot in the game where we have as good a back end as anybody. So haven't done it enough here recently, and that's the challenge here for us in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully then we get some reinforcements that start to come back here as well.
That was A.J. Preller earlier today, right here on 97.3 The Fan. We'll hear more from A.J. throughout the rest of our pregame coverage. First pitch coming up at 4:10 in Miami. Let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Well, Tigers left-hander Tarek Skubal could be making one of his final starts with Detroit today. Skubal, who is 13 strikeouts away from 1,000 in his career, will pitch today against the Kansas City Royals, and that is certainly a major headline to watch moving towards the trade deadline. Will or won't the Tigers move at Tarek Skubal. American League Cy Young Award frontrunner Cam Schlittler takes his Major League best 1.18 road ERA into Philadelphia today. Ronald Acuna Jr. may return to the lineup today. We'll take a look at that Braves lineup in a moment. Acuna had been out since early June with a left hamstring strain. Second time this year he's been sidelined by a hamstring strain. And finally, the Red Sox beginning a series against the Blue Jays today. That's a day after their franchise record 15-game winning streak. Not a day after, but a game after, because they were off yesterday. Their 15-game win streak came to an end in the nightcap of a doubleheader against the Orioles. And that's a look at some of the headlines from around the major leagues. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up in just a little bit. I do want to take a look at that Braves lineup today, get you some concrete information. Is Acuna in their lineup today? Let's see. All right, here we go. Well, no, he's not in their lineup. Now, was he activated today? I would assume no. So apparently not activated today is Ronald Acuna Jr. I would assume not in their lineup today, just so you know. When we return, we'll hear the latest from A.J. Preller on Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove. Plus, we have our keys to today's game. Much, much more to do as we walk you up towards first pitch coming up at 4:10 from Miami on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. That's right, sing a song. How about a Sung Moon Song, who is in today's lineup for the Padres, batting ninth, playing third base. Manny Machado getting a DH day, batting third today as the Padres look for a win in their series opener in Miami. Let's give you the latest on Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove.
Who's in? Who's goes out. This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, from what we had heard earlier this week, Joe Musgrove, Nick Pivetta were scheduled to throw to hitters in Arizona today, so that certainly would be a very good step for both those guys. As far as the latest on Pivetta and Musgrove, why not hear from Padres President of Baseball Operations and General Manager A.J. Preller. He was on Ben and Woods this morning right here on 97.3 The Fan, and they asked him point blank, will Pivetta and Musgrove pitch again this season?
Yeah, they've made, they continue to make progress, and they're getting to the point now where they're going to face hitters and get out into rehab games. So, I know it's been a long road for those guys. They've worked really hard, and I think we're excited here this week to kind of see, to see them get back on the mound, start pitching in games, and hopefully be ready to come help us at some point in time in August. So, like we've said on this, I know it kind of feels like it's been running throughout the whole year. In terms of, that rehab process, they can do all the rehab they want, the plyo balls, the training with our athletic training staff. Really like the test is, can you get on the mound, every 5 days and be able to throw, 50 plus to 75 plus to 90 pitches and then bounce back and do it in 5 days. But they're at a point now where, we're seeing them throw at velocity. We're seeing them get on the mound and get to a point where we'll now go see them against some minor league hitters here and hopefully see him back at Petco in August.
So, will that change kind of what you do in the next 10 days or so before the deadline?
It's all part of it. Like every day, obviously, we're watching our team. You're kind of seeing where we're at in the standings, and then you're obviously, you're trying to get a sense of, hey, this roster could look a lot different in a couple of weeks in terms of guys that are in the building and in the organization coming back. So we got. Obviously we had Randy Vasquez come back, Wandy come back from bereavement list, and then Estrada's out on rehab assignment, and then obviously Joe and Nick after that, and hopefully Jason after that. So yeah, I think you factor it all in. Can you take any of those guys and say it's a guarantee? No, I think they're you'd feel different if they were up there pitching right now currently in the big leagues. So. But I think for us, you factor it in as hey, this is these guys are now getting on the mound and progressing, and what it looks like if they get back into it. That's all part of the decision making process.
That was Padres President of Baseball Operations and General Manager A.J. Preller earlier today here on 97.3 The Fan, talking about not just the current status of Pivetta and Musgrove, but also how their potential returns could impact what the Padres do at the deadline. Let's stay on that topic of the deadline. The deadline is looming under 2 weeks away. The Padres enter today 4 games out of a playoff spot. They are in an interesting situation, and they've got a mighty interesting player in Mason Miller that certainly a lot of teams would be interested in, A, because he's the best closer in the game, and B, because he's got multiple years of control left. After this one, here was A.J. Preller earlier today. He was asked if he's got any calls about Mason Miller so far.
Yeah, every honestly, it's every team and situation's different. Again, for us, we're very strategic in what we, in what we say and how we say it. I think, obviously we've been able to complete some deals over the last few years that have helped us get in the playoffs and advance. I think to me, everybody's a little different. Every situation's different. So some teams play it, very coy, and other teams are pretty direct. Ultimately, you just want people that are straightforward. And, to me, obviously there's always, there's different styles that teams have, but, however you get that, I think, you understand that. And then ultimately, you're going to get to a point, hey, is there a deal here or not? So, again, we've always had, I think the reason why we've been able to make deals is more so we have attractive players, and we have attractive players in our organization at the big league level that, that teams understand are really good at what they do. And then we have attractive prospects that people think are going to be really good at what they do. So as long as you have that, you're going to have the ability to have these conversations, have these talks, and have teams that are interested, and you can tell when they're calling you, they're interested. And that's really no different this year than it's been over the course of the last decade, honestly, because we have good players that people want to talk about.
That was Padres President of Baseball Operations, General Manager A.J. Preller, earlier today here on 97.3 The Fan. If you want to go back and listen to that full interview from this morning on Ben and Woods, you can do that by listening on the free Odyssey app to the Ben and Woods On Demand podcast, or you can also visit 973thefansd.com. As always, our pregame coverage brought to you by EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com or call 760-350-3338. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
Oh, we have one game that's almost over. Then we have two games that are just underway. Then we have everything else coming up a little bit later. Rockies and the Brewers in Milwaukee. They're already in the ninth inning there. Rockies leading the Brew Crew 5-2 in the ninth inning. Cubs and the Pirates just underway in Pittsburgh in the first inning. Royals and the Tigers are just underway in Detroit. Scoreless game in the first inning there. Coming up a little bit later, D-backs in Washington against the Nationals, Yankees and the Phillies in Philadelphia. Good pitching matchup there. Cam Schlittler on the mound for New York. Jesus Luzardo on the mound for Philly. Braves and the Orioles in Baltimore later. Guardians and the Rays in Tampa Bay. Dodgers visit the Mets in New York. Blue Jays and the Red Sox at Fenway. Astros and the White Sox in Chicago. Rangers host the Mariners in Arlington. A's and the Twins in Minnesota. Reds and the Cardinals in St. Louis, and finally Angels and the Giants later on this evening in San Francisco. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll have much more on all those games coming up a little bit later during our post-game coverage. Well, before we give you our keys to today's game, one thing I want to point out about the Marlins, they just went winless on a road trip through Milwaukee and Houston. As we've said many times so far, Marlins in the midst of a 9-game losing streak. However, Marlins are 31-20 at home, just 21-31 on the road, so they have been a far better team in Miami than on the road this season. Just something to keep in mind as the Padres begin this 3-game set at Lone Depot Park in Miami. Let's give you our keys to this series opener in the 305.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Rock and Block Turf and Hardscapes. Beautiful artificial turf that stays green all year long. Trust and experience. The job isn't done until it's done right. See them at rockandblocklandscape.com.
Key number 1, capitalize on a struggling Marlin offense. The Marlins, again, they've lost 9 in a row. One of the big reasons why they're not scoring very many runs right now. Marlins have scored 3 or fewer runs in 7 of those 9 games. Miami also really struggling with runners in scoring position. They're hitting just 145 with runners in scoring position during this 9-game skid. So can the Padres capitalize on a struggling Miami offense? That is key number 1. Key number 2, deal with the Gusto changeup. Marlins starter Ryan Gusto could lean very heavily on his changeup today. Here's why. Hitters are just 2 for 18 with no extra base hits against that pitch so far this season. And just so you know, the Padres are hitting just 191 against off-speed pitches this year. So could Gusto look to utilize that changeup against this Padres lineup? Very well could be the case. Can the Padres handle that good changeup from Gusto? That's key number 2. Key number 3, keep them in the yard. Padres pitchers allowed 4 home runs yesterday in Atlanta. Since the start of July, the Padres have allowed the second most home runs in the major leagues. They got to find a way to keep this Marlins lineup in the yard. We'll see if the Padres can do that today. And that's a look at our keys to today's game. When we return, we take a look at a couple of Marlin hitters you want to keep an eye on, plus a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup between Ryan Gusto and German Marquez. Much, much more to do. First pitch coming up at 4:10 from Miami on the Padres Radio Network. Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. First pitch coming your way at 4:10 p.m. from Miami. We send things out to Jesse and Tony in under 10 minutes. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Couple of guys to keep an eye on in this Miami lineup today. In particular, let's begin with the leadoff man, National League All-Star Otto Lopez, their shortstop. He continues to lead the major leagues in hits, in average at 332, in multi-hit games and doubles. He is a really, really good player leading off today for Miami. Another guy to keep an eye on today, Heriberto Hernandez, who is batting third. He's got an on-base streak of 15 games right now. In that 15-game span, he's hitting 320 with 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, 5 doubles, 6 walks. So 2 guys in the top 3 of that lineup today you really want to keep an eye on in Hernandez and Lopez. And oh, by the way, you've got Kyle Stowers, who's got 12 home runs hitting between him. So top 3 in the lineup, not so easy, and we'll see how German Marquez and the Padres bullpen does today against the top 3 in that Marlin lineup. So we told you a couple of guys to keep an eye on as far as the Marlins hitters. What about this game in general? Let's tell you what to watch for.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovements.com.
What to watch for in today's game. Will these 2 teams continue to run? Here is why I bring it up. The Marlins and the Padres rank respectively 2nd and 3rd in the major leagues this season in stolen bases. The Marlins are 2nd in the majors at 107 on the year. The Padres 3rd at 106. Now, a note about the Marlins. They've given up a league-high 97 steals this season. However, their rookie catcher behind the plate today, Joe Mack, he leads the major leagues with 19 caught stealings, despite not making his major league debut until early May. So keep in mind, even though the Padres like to run, even though the Marlins like to run, the guy behind the plate for Miami, Joe Mack, he's been very good at throwing guys out. So keep an eye on that today. What does the running game look like for both these teams? As far as our starting pitching matchup today, Ryan Gusto on the mound for Miami, German Marquez on the mound for San Diego. Let's dive in.
Let's break down how today's starters are shaping up with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Let's begin with a look at Miami right-hander Ryan Gusto, 27 years old. He's 0-2 with a 4.70 ERA this season, 11 outings, 6 starts, 30-plus innings, 2 scoreless innings. A few days ago in Houston, a 2.65 ERA in his last 6 appearances, a span of 17 innings. He's actually thrown as many as 91 pitches this season, did come more than a month ago, so we'll see how long he can go today. He faced the Padres in April of last season when he was a member of the Astros. 5 innings, 2 runs given up, 9 hits. Then later in the year, he was traded from Houston to Miami in the deal that sent outfielder Jesus Sanchez to the Astros. So Padres have seen Gusto once, but it was in an Astro uniform. That's a look at Ryan Gusto. Meanwhile, on the mound for the Padres, right-hander German Marquez. Marquez 4-2, a 5.24 ERA, 10 outings on the season, 44 2/3 innings. Last start against the Royals, gave up 2 runs on 5 hits in 3 innings. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup today. Ryan Gusto on the mound for Miami, German Marquez on the mound for San Diego. Well, again, A.J. Preller joined Ben and Woods earlier today. Let's wrap up our pregame coverage by listening to one more thing that A.J. had to say. Here was A.J. Preller. Kyle, this is A.J. Preller cut 2 on whether he will buy or sell with this Padre team at the deadline. Have a listen.
I mean, I think it's a lot of the factors that you just touched on. It's you're basically looking at how the team's playing. You're looking at, the standings and the math of, kind of where we're at. Good and bad. I mean, we had a stretch there where we came out of the break and lost a couple of games and somehow gained a game in the standings. So, I think you're trying to figure out, is that good, bad, et cetera. But then factoring in again, like what's out there on the market and, does it make sense? Obviously, that stretch from when we were building, we were more in the cellar world from 2016 to 2019, but since then we've been a very good team. We've played I think we've probably had about a week or two of meaningless games here in terms of this decade at Petco that haven't had playoff implications. So, we've been more in the bye world here over the last couple of years, and it's helped us get to the playoffs a bunch of times and win some series in the playoffs. So, but every year is different, and we're going to look at it here, looking at those factors that you just mentioned, and kind of see what's out there in the market as well. And we'll see where we go. So that's the point of this week is coming up with the deadline. It's active. We're getting a lot of calls, and like when you're in the middle in terms of the standings, then it opens up to the possibility of kind of looking at your team in different ways, and we're doing that, and we're thorough on it.
That was Padres President of Baseball Operations, General Manager A.J. Preller. Earlier today, like A.J. said, big week here coming up for the Padres. Big weekend in Miami, series opener. Jesse and Tony coming your way when we come back. As always, we appreciate you listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.